Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week we'll be discussing the 1999 horror classic, The Blair Witch Project, starring the Blair Witch, I guess. For those of you joining us for the first time, each week on the B Movie Club, I discuss certain guilty pleasures and forgotten classics. You can go ahead and go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club, and give us the big thumbs up. You can also go to our page on YouTube, Kevin D, that's me. You can subscribe, it's totally free. And you can follow me on Twitter at the B Movie Club. Don't forget to spread the word, won't you? The Blair Witch Project. In this movie, some footage was found that was shot by 3 college students, I guess, trying to uncover the secret of the legend of the Blair Witch. They go back to this town of Burkittsville, Maryland, where hundreds of years ago the evil Blair Witch was roaming around doing witchy things, I guess. And more recently, 50, 60 years ago, a serial killer was kidnapping children and killing them, allegedly also possessed or inspired by the Blair Witch. So they're going back there to get to the bottom of this. They start by interviewing people in the community. They get mixed reactions. Some people, oh yeah, I've heard the Blair Witch. I've heard of that story. You know, it's kind of a boogeyman story meant to scare children into doing their chores, that sort of thing. Other people are totally oblivious. I don't know anything about it, buddy. Sorry. The next step is to actually go into the woods that used to be Blair, I guess, the name of the city hundreds of years ago, and follow the path that the Blair Witch may have taken. Unfortunately, very early on, they get lost. They don't know where they are. They start to see weird trinkets, including like stick figures made from sticks, hanging from trees, little stacks of rocks. I know, it's very suspicious. At first, you know, hey, stick figures and rocks, what's the big deal? But then they start hearing noises late at night. Their tents getting shaken around. They hear cracking and cackling and children's voices. And they realize they're really lost. They keep traveling. They have a compass and they have a map, but are unable to do it. To use it effectively, evidently, they keep traveling south, but keep wandering around in circles. It's very upsetting for everybody. One night, one of the 3 just disappears. They don't know where he is. They go off to look for him. Eventually they find some kind of a packet, a sack, if you will, that appear to have some sort of blood and yucky stuff in it, maybe some teeth. They think that belongs to Josh, the guy who took off, or who disappeared, I should say. Eventually, they start hearing Josh screaming in the night, "Ah, help me!" that sort of thing. They go out to look for it. They find a spooky old house. I don't want to spoil everything. I don't want to give everything away, in case some people haven't seen it yet. It's a thrilling conclusion. This movie really kind of brought back the whole found footage genre. There had been other movies that had come out before that had found footage where it's essentially like, oh, you know, the real filmmakers are missing or dead, but we found their footage. Let's watch it and find out the secret of their adventures or whatever. When this movie came out, there was a big publicity blitz about how this was a real thing. There were 3 real filmmakers that went out and did this who disappeared a couple of years ago. We just now found the footage. I remember when this came out, I was actually believing. A lot of people were believing it because they were putting out there as fact. You go to the website and get the story behind how they disappeared and blah, 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 blah. If you went onto their IMDb page, the 3 actors of the show, Heather, Mike, and Josh, it actually said missing, presumed dead. Now this was all baloney, obviously. It was all done to kind of elicit that kind of reaction. The original script wasn't really a script, more of an outline. It was done in 1994 by these 2 filmmakers. The idea they made up this whole legend about the Blair Witch. There was no such thing. and it was meant to bring in 3 actors skilled in improvisation and kind of make them experience this to a certain degree. And that's what they did a few years later. They hired these actors. They pretended to be shooting a documentary. Although half the cast didn't know how to operate cameras, they had to teach them how to do it, which is why it's kind of touch and go there from time to time. And they actually put them through this. They had them hiking all day. They limited their food and water while they were in this to make them more irritable. Each day they would slip them notes as to each character's individual motivations for that day. They'd give them GPS readings so that they would wind up where they wanted them to wind up each night, so that they'd be able to camp and blah, blah, blah. All the experiences they experience are really frightening to them. Their reactions are more or less real. When people are shaking the tent and they're hearing the noise, they really are freaked out. Obviously they know it's fake, but it's like going into a haunted house at a carnival or something, or watching a scary movie. You know it's fake, but you can still feel those emotions. One scene where it was like they've hiked for 15 hours and they wound up back where they started. Their reactions were genuine because that's kind of what really happened. There was supposed to be, I guess, at one point some kind of a romantic connection between Josh and Heather, but they thought it was too cliche. They got rid of it. And they actually had to tone back a lot of the arguments that were going on, because at one point it seemed like it was the guys kind of ganging up on Heather, because Heather was the director, the documentarian, and she was the one who's supposedly the expert in the map, but of course they keep getting more and more lost, which makes the guys irritated, so they cut that back. When they were done, they had over 18 hours of footage. They filmed over 8 days over the course of in these woods. And the first cut wound up being 2.5 hours long. Now, they said that it cost them about $35,000 to film the movie. Obviously, you paid the actors. There's no script. There's no soundtrack. They had the 2 cameras. One of the cameras, they bought it from like Circuit City. And when they were done filming, they returned it. So it's a little way to kind of save some money here and there. So they filmed it. They edited it down. And then they played it at one of the festivals. I think it was Sundance. And Artisan Entertainment bought the movie for $1.1 million and some agreement of small profits going to the filmmakers. All the footage you see is filmed by the 3 actors. I think there's like one scene where it was filmed by somebody else, but it's all filmed by those guys. And like I said, their reactions were real. Towards the end of the movie, there's kind of a scary chase in the haunted house, and you can hear Heather kind of hyperventilating, and evidently it was all real because it was all pretty creepy. It's a scary show. What can I say? What's funny is, on one hand, this movie was very well received, while other people found it ridiculous. I remember watching it, and I enjoyed it, but it's interesting that you forget how important, in my mind, a soundtrack really is to kind of build up the drama, kind of let the audience cues. Okay, this is going to be a scary scene, this is kind of a funny scene, that sort of thing. And it makes a difference when there's nothing. There's no cues, you just kind of have to follow along. Now, I know Heather Donahue, who played Heather in the show, she actually said there was backlash against her. She found it difficult to get work after this. People were antagonistic because of her performance, I guess. I don't know. There's that one scene where it's like a close-up of like her nose, like, oh, I'm so scared, I can't close my eyes. People didn't really like that scene. It's like, you don't need to have the camera this close to have your confessional, I guess. We don't need to see your nose running, if at all possible. I know, I guess her mom received a bunch of condolence cards in the mail. Oh, we're so sorry to hear your daughter's missing in the woods, that sort of thing. But so Artisan Entertainment paid $1.1 to get this movie, and they spent another $25 million publicizing this movie, to getting the word out, and it did very, very well. It wound up making over $250 million. And it was in the Guinness Book of World Records for amount of money spent to make the movie versus how much money came in. It was something like, for every dollar spent, it made like $10,050, something like that. So that's kind of interesting, I find. Currently, This movie has a 95% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and it has the dubious distinction of being the highest rated movie on Netflix, while also being nominated for Worst Picture on the Razzies. There were a lot of... It kind of swung both ways. Some people thought it was genius, other people thought it was ridiculous. I know people who saw it and were not frightened by it at all. It just seemed like they were just a bunch of kids shooting something in their backyard over the weekend kind of thing. So Worst Picture, actually won Worst Actress for poor Heather. She's getting hit from all sides here. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's... Once you know what's going to happen, obviously it kind of diminishes the fear factor. Especially because obviously you know it's bogus. They actually made a sequel to it called Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows, which was a huge flop. It didn't do any of the found footage stuff anymore, which is kind of like, ooh, there's still the Blair Witch. They were going to make a third one, but it got tabled. But recently, the original directors of the movie have talked about how they're going to release a third one coming up soon, so wait for that, won't you? The actors, I mean, they've been working on and off. Nothing that anybody's ever seen. I mean, I'm sure some people have seen it. I've never seen it. They're still around, I guess, right? So, there you have it. That's the Blair Witch Project. I enjoyed it. It is still streaming instantly on Netflix, so rush out and see it if you have not already. It deals much more in kind of the creepiness of just being lost in the woods, and there may be something out there. You don't really see much. Even the scene where it's like, oh my goodness, there are teeth in this thing. It's hard to see what is actually in there. Filmmaking, the actual taking of the pictures kind of comes and goes because, as I said, they had inexperienced camera people operating every camera. So, what are you going to do? C'est la vie. Next week, moving away from the horror genre into the comedy genre, we're going to be doing Not Another Teen Movie. You know, don't you? Starring Chris Evans, Randy Quaid's in this one. Mr. T makes an appearance. It is streaming instantly on Netflix, so rush out and see it. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Give us a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to our page on YouTube. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at The B Movie Club. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote. And here it is. What's that? Is that the Blair Witch? Nope, it's just Heather taking a piss. So there it is. Thank you for joining us next week. Not Another Teen Movie, streaming instantly on Netflix. Be well.